Hi, I'm Julie Davis, Senior Director of Workforce Development for the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, and I'm here today to talk to you about meeting your workforce needs. How do you recruit and hire? Why is communication and culture so important? How do we retain employees and do good employee development without breaking the bank? So those are ideas and concepts that are important to every business owner and every business. And so we wanted to supply a location where best practices were collected, where the research information was streamlined for you, and where somebody who hasn't had a background in workforce development could have instant access to some action strategy plans where you could just jump in there, take a look at it, and decide what worked for you to implement. So let me introduce you to the Workforce Solutions Toolkit. And I'm going to start by sharing with you access to the toolkit, which is right off of the association's webpage. I'm going to share my screen. And now you're looking at the association's main web page. And we're going to go into member services, go on to Workforce Solutions. And here you'll see the Workforce Solutions web page, a little introduction, and then here's the information about the toolkit. Also on this page, you'll see that you can schedule a personal one-on-one overview of the toolkit and have your questions answered, and you can go ahead and set that schedule up on there one-on-one. There's also some frequently asked questions. There's an on-demand video tutorial and a video tutorial slideshow. So we'll go ahead and log into the toolkit. And you'll see that I get to a dashboard. When you first log in, you will get asked a couple of questions to help us customize that dashboard to you, what your industry sector is, what your roles and responsibilities are, and then a little bit about what you're hoping to get out of this toolkit. So once you do that, you'll get to the dashboard and you'll see I have a menu here of action plans, articles, research, and resources and assessments. I have action plans that I've already taken a look at. I have some latest article information, and I also have a little bit about what companies are doing in workforce development that's innovative. So I'm going to take us to the core of this toolkit, which are the action plans. And you'll see that we have 16 different action plans or 15 different action plans that kind of span the gamut of workforce topics. So everything from how to set up an apprenticeship and form an educational partnership to how do we look at culture? How do we deal with an aging workforce? I'm going to go down to probably the most, important one right now for companies, which is how do we recruit and hire? So if we go into outreach, you'll see that what I have is a little overview about what do I mean by outreach? What is outreach? Again, the current outlook for outreach, so a little bit about the skills gap that's projected. So by 2030, it's projected that manufacturing will have 2.1 million open unfulfilled positions. And then some immediate information that talks specifically about recruiting. We'll go to the what you can do. And so this really talks about building your strategy for recruitment, and really talent strategy and business strategy need to work hand in hand. So when you're looking at your business strategy, you're planning to, 3-5 years out in advance. When you look at your talent strategy, you really need to have that long-term filling your workforce pipeline perception. So let's talk about the outreach strategies. So here are some strategies for filling your existing openings. And then there's also some strategies for building your workforce pipeline. And really businesses are most successful when they deploy strategies for both of those issues. There are also some case studies, so you can take a look at what some other companies are doing to do that workforce initiative with their feet on the ground right now. From that, what you can do overview, we go into the action plan areas, and you'll see that the action plans are rated as light, moderate, or heavy lifts. And that is how much resources, time, and talent you might need to incorporate one of those strategies. So we'll go ahead and start with a lighter lift, which is identifying some new sources of advertising for talent. I can go in there and take a look around. You'll see that it has a purpose statement. It has an audience. So who is my target audience on this? I also have some immediate resources that talk about this particular strategy. If I go into the AEM Skill Bridge flyer, you'll see that I have an overview of what the DoD Skill Bridge program is and what that program looks like and how I could get in contact with somebody that is implementing that program. Also information about work opportunity tax credit, which is available when you are hiring from populations that are underserved. So there's some tax incentives to hire veterans or ex-offenders or people who are from underutilized or underserved populations. And an explanation of the federal bonding program, and that is when you hire from a underutilized or underserved population, there is additional insurance that will be available at no cost to you that would cover any risk or any hardship that you might suffer from somebody that you hired from that population. So absolutely a way to incent employers to take the risk of hiring from a underutilized or underserved talent pool, which I think is a great idea right now as we are looking, trying to find those additional people to recruit. From there, I have some different steps that you'll want to cover. So how do we cover the basics of recruitment? So here's some ideas on that. Here's a little bit of information about selecting your target audience. And when you are recruiting, if you're just doing the same thing again and again and again, and it's just job postings, then you're really competing against every other business in your area. The way that you can get an advantage is by really looking at what target populations might be available in your area. And by that, I mean targeting veterans, being open to hiring ex-offenders, targeting women, and there's a specific way that you need to do that. Targeting minorities, looking at opportunity youth, and are there ways that you can, engage them and bring them in through apprenticeship programs or job shadowing. So there's some different strategies for each of those target populations. This is specific job sites where those job posting sites will cater to those different audiences. How can you get the word out? And then how do you follow up that conversation? So again, there's some strategies that are very tactical on here, some resources that are very specific. And then when I'm done with this, I can jump right back in and take a look at some of the other ones. So let's go back out to the action plans. That was a very quick overview of an outreach action plan. So if you're looking for different strategies on hiring, different population pools to tap into, the action plan here does talk specifically about how can you recruit veterans and why would you want to do that? How do you maybe consider the second chance audience or the ex-offender audience, which I think is really at this point of time, it's one of the largest population pools that I think is really underutilized. And I think we really need to challenge our normals and look at, are we unable to hire or are we unwilling to hire because we're excluding different population pools that might be good fits for our industry? How do we connect with education to build that pipeline? So there's a lot of information here on best practices for outreach and hiring, along with some very tactical resources of different job posting boards that you might consider to reach those targeted groups. All right, let's go back out to the action plans. And I want to talk a little bit about culture. So I'm going to click on that culture action plan. Culture is something that's really important when you're talking about recruiting and retention, and people know about your work environment. Your employees do talk, they share, whether it's a good work environment, whether it's a bad work environment. When you're talking about recruitment, often your very best way to recruit and hire employees is by your own existing employees, if they like your culture and if they feel good about where they're working, inviting friends and family in to join your organization. So culture is very key when it comes to hiring. It's also very key when it comes to keeping your employees. So with that in mind, culture is a big issue, and I think people steer away from that a little bit more than they need to, because there are some strategies that over time can help you influence and shape your culture. So let's go ahead and continue. Here's an overview with a little story about, culture and how that can influence workers staying with you. Here's a little bit of data points about why culture is important. And there are some books that you can take a look at as far as getting more in-depth ideas about culture. And then what you can do. And so when we're building a strategy about culture, it's really about assessing your organization. You need to understand what's happening now. What do people think about your culture now? And that doesn't have to be big and scary to do. That can take the form of some surveys or some small group conversations. What you want to get is some feedback and some open and honest feedback about the perception that folks have, and you need to do it in a way that allows trust and doesn't make people feel uncomfortable. The best way to do that is to actually get a team of people that is from a variety of different positions in your organization that are willing to spearhead that effort, so that it has a approach that is from the top down and from the bottom up. And then working with that team of people to create a prioritized plan, really considering how those managers and supervisors fit in there. People say all the time that they didn't leave the job, they left the manager or they left their boss. And so really helping and engaging managers and supervisors in creating a culture that has been agreed upon is going to be pivotal. The importance of a communication cannot be understated in this. And again, there's an entire section about communication. What does good communication look like? How are you looking at communication? So, and then employees and celebrating results as you go through. I want to step into, again, some of these action plans. This is definitely, when you're working with culture, it's going to be a longer term process. But again, it's so key to recruiting employees. It's so key to retaining employees that I would really challenge you not to shy away from this, and really to look at the truth of where you're at and see if there are things that you can do, and then engage a team of people to help with this. And I think you'll be amazed at the steady success that you have when you put attention to this. I want to just go into communication, and even though that's marked as a heavy lift, I want to show you the resources that are here based on best practices. So here's the purpose. One of the things that we have is a reference to some very good material that, again, breaks down what do I mean by communication and how do we evaluate that. So here are those resources. And here are, when I go into there, here are some questions that I can ask when I talk about leadership and employee communication. Again, it's some simple questions that you can run through with your team that you've created and have them answer and give you some feedback. And it's going to give you that feedback. So you don't have to struggle to make the questions up or to be like, what should I be asking? These are all really great questions that have come out of some researched information. So again, helping you to be able to take this conversation to a level where you've got the tactics in order to be able to do that, and you're not struggling for tactics. So that is the action plan on culture. I do want to, again, jump into the action plan on employee engagement. Right now, there is just a huge upswing in expectations that you will be developing your employees, and that there would be a progression or a career pathway so that employees can grow. I will tell you that Generation Z and the millennials are often looking for what is that next step. And you'll see a lot of times people leaving after the third year of being employed somewhere. When you think about employment, it's really important to have this idea that the first year that somebody is on board, they're learning that job. The second year that somebody is with you, they're learning your organization. So they're looking around and saying, what does this organization look like? The third year that somebody's with an organization, they're saying, how is that organization impacting me? And so at that third year, it's really key for those employees that want to grow and be developed that you have a pathway for that growth and development to occur, or you will see a lot of those younger generations spilling out after that third year because they're looking for an organization that will develop them. And so employee engagement and development sometimes seems very off-putting to smaller organizations because they are like, man, I cannot afford to do that. I cannot afford the time. I can't afford the tracking. I can't afford the training. But I want to refer you to a book called Winning the War for Talent by Chris Zarnik. Chris is somebody that has presented at the AEM Workforce Summits both last year, and he will be presenting on August 19th, which by the time you see this, I'm sure it will be done. But Chris is an excellent speaker, and he's come up with a plan for employee engagement that even the smallest employer could do. And again, you can certainly take a look at his book, which is a very short, concise read, Winning the War for Talent. You don't have to be a big reader in order to really get a lot out of that book. It's very outside the box. And his idea for engagement really comes down to choosing 4 or 5 concepts that you need somebody to be a subject matter expert in your organization. And when somebody wants to engage in development, saying, of these 5 topics that we really need to, as an organization, have somebody be an expert in, which one of those appeals to you? And we're going to give you a set amount of time over a set period of time that you can research this on your own. And so it might be that it's 2 hours a week and they're given access to a computer. And for those 2 hours during the week, they have some time to investigate and research on their own. At the end of that set period of time, they come back and they do a formal report to their managers and supervisors of what they've learned in that area to demonstrate the knowledge that they have to share. Then they are organizationally seen as a subject matter expert. And so again, when issues arise in this area, it's important then to engage that person who has spent that time developing a knowledge base about that topic, and they're brought in as a point of reference. They are celebrated as a subject matter expert, so definitely you would want to acknowledge them company-wide and say that this person is now an SME on whatever topic it is. And again, there's not a lot of tracking, there's not a lot of investment. As you know, when people are really invested in something, a lot of times they'll do that research not only at work, but also if they're really into it, they'll do some outside of work as well. And so it's really beneficial to both the company and to the employee. So I'm in the employee engagement area now, and I want to kind of take a look at where you can find some of that. So this data point area, we're in the overview, why is engagement so important? If you look at the behaviors, the studied behaviors of engaged employees, you want these engaged behaviors. You do not want people who have these disengaged behaviors. So again, some articles and a couple of books on engagement. And we're going to go into what you can do. So, and again, studies show that it's not necessarily the wage and benefits that are the top needs for folks to be able to stay with their organization. So I think that, this particular resource has a list of 31 drivers of engagement. And so if you really want to know what studies show engages employees, this is a great research to jump into and just say, okay, what are the top 10 reasons that people stay? And am I even thinking about those as an employer? So again, building your strategy, you want to assess and prioritize, look at organizational communication, which is time and time again, one of the biggest concerns of employees in how you communicate. And then what is that trust connection with leadership? How are we looking at development opportunities and measuring impact? So again, we're going to, jump into some of these. So I'll just start with this create development opportunities. Here's the book that I was recommending with Chris Zarnik, and this will take you right out onto Amazon, where if you chose to purchase that, you could do that. Some different, development areas that you can take a look at. So again, if you wanted to do some employee assessment, you'd have the opportunity to do that. And then here is, again, Chris's development plan that is kind of laid out as how you would set up a virtually zero cost employee development plan, and how you would kind of celebrate that. So just great information about employee development. Heading back to the action plans. Again, if you are thinking about an internship, if you're thinking about how do I deal with a technician shortage or rural workforce issues, those are all issues that you can jump into this toolkit and get some information on, and information that is actionable, information that is concise, and then information that has references back to the research. So not that I think that people have time to do a lot of reading and research on this, but I do want to just take a minute to say we do have a collection of almost 250 workforce specific articles in here that support the best practices and references that we're referring to. You can search that. You can actually go in here and say, hey, I just want some best practice ideas. What are those? And it'll bring some up that have been marked that way. So there's some filtering here that you can do. And again, with research, if I bring the newest research information up, here's a great USDA guide for rural workforce development that can give you some very actionable ideas about some best practices. And again, we are continuing to look for the latest industry research on best practices and then make sure that it is included in these areas. I'll take a minute to take a look at the two assessments that we have. We do have a workforce development assessment, and that is an organizational assessment that helps you take a look at what your organizational strengths and weaknesses are in workforce development. And again, what's measured is your organizational intent, your readiness to actually make change, your culture, education and training, your hiring strategies, whether you are actually doing best practice hiring strategies, and your engagement. And that is community engagement or your engagement with other workforce partners in your community. This one does have some results ready, so I'm going to jump right into viewing results. This assessment requires 2 to 3 people total to take it. It is not based on one person's opinion. It is based on that of a decision maker, somebody in the HR capacity, and then somebody in operations, with the thought that you want to have all 3 of those organizational perspectives to give you some good feedback on where you are as an organization, what your strengths and opportunities are. You'll see that there's a lot of places where these people are aligned in what they're thinking, but there's also some real discrepancies showing here. So I think what we want to do is take a look and have a conversation after the assessment is done and saying, who is perceiving this differently? Why are they perceiving that? Where is that disconnect? It could be that the person in blue, knows that there's a new something that is on the horizon, and it's going to take all of the efforts of folks to do it. And so we're, as an organization, we're really not ready. And so you want to be able to have that conversation ahead of time. So that is the organizational assessment. And you'll see that, again, it kind of gives you that scattered rating, either as a scatter chart or as this information web. The other assessment tool that we have is a community asset mapping tool. And this is really about how are you leveraging the organizations in your community that exist to help you with workforce development. Every community, no matter how small, has some workforce-focused organizations in their community that they should be leveraging so that they are not having to do the workforce lift on their own. And those organizations include government organizations, so your Workforce Development Board, Department of Labor, Department of Education, also your educational institutes, so whether it's the K-12 school system, whether it's the technical college system, Each of them have some opportunities. Nonprofit partners, and that would be organizations like Skills USA or FFA or any other organization that facilitates a experiential learning opportunity for youth, where they are helping connect youth with your industry, and perhaps even give them some technical skills training. So you want to make sure that you're connected to those organizations. Also for-profit organizations, and that is really some of those recruiting organizations. So there's a lot of different organizations and a lot of different ways that you would work with those organizations. I also want to talk a little bit about this idea of a workforce strategy when you're looking at how do I engage with workforce, and this idea that we have the opportunity to buy workers, to borrow workers, to build workers, and then to bridge for workers. And, buy is a category where we go and we, increase wages, we differentiate benefits. It's kind of the typical way that we find people to work for us. Borrow is that consultant or contractor or temporary worker that you can borrow to fill that existing skill gaps, and there's some organizations that can help you with that. Building workers is really investing in learning and development, and that includes internal activities like apprenticeships and internships. That also includes some external partnerships with education and community collaborations. And then bridging workers also is about, are we helping to move people up? Are we helping to move people out if that's the best fit for them? And what do we have to help bridge people to that next opportunity, whether it's an internal or an external opportunity? So the way that we're working with this is we're really taking a look at what activities do I need to do? Am I building awareness? Am I trying to hire and attract people? Am I training or preparing them? And then what organizations do that? The check marks in this example are organizations where I'm already working with them in that capacity. So if I'm working with a workforce development organization and I am on their advisory board, that's one way that I can work with them. But there's also all of these other opportunities that are typically available when looking at a workforce development organization. And again, K-12, if I am working with our K-12 and I'm doing some kind of a training boot camp with the high schoolers, what else could I do when I look at, creating industry awareness, or if I look at even recruitment activities? So this just gives you an idea of who's available, who does what, and who am I working with, who should I be working with, and what additional opportunities to work with them can I have? So that one is a little bit less intuitive, but I think it should get your wheels turning about, not having to do workforce development all on your own. So I'm here back on the dashboard, and I think that I've covered quite a bit of information for you. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. As the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, I also want to let you know that we have some additional resources outside of this toolkit. We are providing some workforce tactic videos, and you can get on our email list for that. They are 2-minute workforce tactics for very busy people who are trying to just have a very short blurb of information. We send them out every 3 weeks, and there are ideas that are immediately applicable and just very short and concise, not overwhelming. So certainly you can sign up for those. I also have a list that I've been collecting of different job boards that you can utilize for different target population pools. So if you'd like to have a copy of that job posting list, take a look at it, see what you're using, what maybe you'd want to do some additional postings on. I have the job posting sites for every single state. So if you are in multiple locations and you're wondering, how would be easy to post that job posting on each state, we can help you with that as well. So lots of resources here with the association that are available to our members. A lot of these are available to our partner association members as well. So if you're in the industry, chances are pretty good that, we are looking to help you and support you in your job workforce development needs. So again, my name is Julie Davis. I'm the Senior Director of Workforce Development. I hope that this gave you some things to think about and was helpful. Feel free to reach out to me. My email address is jdavis@aem.org. I hope that you have a great time at the Utility Expo, and thanks for listening.